Welcome to Audio Documentaries with Dweezil Zappa. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me once again.
Well, this is our thing. It's our weekly thing. So I want you to take a guess at what we're going to do tonight. I'm not going to tell you. I don't want to put it out there, but I just want you to
Ah,
guess.
spidey senses are tingling. Having a bad day.
Well, you're gonna have a good day with this one. But I love this album. I think one favorite thing is you've owned the color green. Like blues has the plaid thing to me.
Yeah.
Forever you own that color green. That was the
It,
first guitar I saw you with.
well, it came from green was my favorite color, and I had never seen anybody with a green guitar at the point where I ordered that guitar. And it was from Charvel Jackson, and they didn't really have any colors to choose from. They're like, "What color do you want it to be?" I said, "Well, I mean, I want it to be a natural green, but a hyped up green, not just
Yeah,
an over the top."
neon.
Yeah, but it ended up becoming more of a neon green for, I guess, the 80s, that color, that, and then towards chartreuse, which is kind of a yellowy version
Yeah.
of that. Those were really colors that jumped out, and people had them in their clothing or whatever. I mean, you would see it show up, but green was usually not the color of choice for most people. But then you
No.
started seeing it after that guitar. You started seeing it in a few places. I think CC DeVille from Poison ended up having like a BC Rich, that
And
same
I know it was
color.
called the poison green, but to me it's always that green is the
Yeah,
diesel green to me. That's why I saw it first. I mean,
yeah. Was that 1986?
yeah, 86, 85.
I don't remember.
There's
85,
actually
86.
there's actually a phone number that we can call, the 818 pumpkin number to call and see if we can get some information from that.
Yeah,
See if we can just take that phone
let's see how
call.
well that works right now.
Yeah, and if somebody answered that call, right? So it's 1986 on it.
Yeah.
Is the release date on here?
I probably got the guitar in 1985, but I did have a guitar that was made by Performance Guitar, which was a little place in Hollywood that worked on some of my dad's guitars. They worked on guitars for Steve Vai and Warren DeMartini from Rat and a couple different people over the years. But they had built me a Stratocaster shaped guitar that was, it was more of like the chartreuse kind of thing. It ended up kind of being more lime green,
Hmm.
but the paint started to crack all over the place. So it really was crackled over. And that guitar I did play on stage for Charlena and some other things where I played live with my dad. And I believe I had that guitar probably a few months before I got the Charvel green one. So the performance one was actually my first green guitar, but it started cracking and it had all these kind of little, it looked like the a really arid desert, the way it would crack if you saw a lake bed or something, you
That's
know.
kind of cool. And as long as it wasn't like flaking off as you were holding it. It was just more of a
No.
visual. It was early relicking is what it was, right?
Yeah,
Nowadays
pretty much.
you pay for that.
Hmm.
Bit of a
I
some of the
still
stuff.
like a guitar that looks beat up on purpose. You know, even some people are like, oh man, you got to earn that. Like, well, I don't have time to play it for 300 hours before it starts getting beat up. You know?
I get guitars I will never ever wear out like that ever. You know,
Yeah.
I know the
The
first time you
only
ding it,
guitar
you're
that
like,
I
oh,
ever had that I played that much that started to have some of those things naturally happen was the Walnut SG that I used to play all the time for all the first years of Zappa Plays Zappa.
yeah.
There was probably close to 700 or 800 shows where that was
Oh,
the only guitar or the very main guitar that I played. So not only those shows, but all of the hours of practice and all that stuff. So that's the only one
where did it
where,
wear though? Like
well,
where
it
like
on the frets a little bit, but on the hardware, on the bridge, it would start to have rust spots or other things where stuff was kind of getting sanded down under natural circumstances. But other than that, I don't have any guitar that has any kind of wear. You know how some people have a really acidic connection with the strings, like their fingers produce a certain acidic reaction. I don't have that on my guitars, but sometimes a certain person might have that, and they might play your guitar, and you could have new strings and they play it, and suddenly now you need to change your strings after
They're
they
sweating
played it
gravy
for
is
5
what
minutes.
they're doing, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad I don't have that chemical reaction with stuff, but that would be a problem.
Maybe a horrible irony for you. I mean, I think most like the rockers do though. You know, with the big rock belts and the spikes and stuff, and you know,
Yeah.
like Zach Wild can just have a job where he could just like antique everybody's guitar tonight. You just give it to him, and between his chains and his pinch harmonics, and I love him too. That's why I'm saying. But he's a monster at it. But his clothing could just antique in a minute. So
at least the back of it.
Yeah, right. So while I got the album down in front of me, it's got some names and stuff on it. Well, we hit there first, all right?
Sure.
So what's one of the big things you actually put on this album is you put down firstly, musicians is you, and then you have Scott on bass, which is Scott Tunes. That was the
Scott Tunis. He played in my dad's band, and he was still in the band at the time that we recorded this because I was 15. We probably recorded it in 1985, and it came out in 1986.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad wasn't touring a lot right at that time, which gave some time for Scott to work on this. But Chad Wackerman played drums, and he was in my dad's band at the time.
Which was fantastic. I mean, you actually, a lot of your dad's musicians, when your dad stopped touring, you kind of picked up a few of them too. I know Mike played with you for a few years afterwards.
Yeah,
too.
Mike Keneally ended up playing on some stuff and playing in.
Was he on this? He wasn't on this album, was he? This was too early.
He was in the later ones. Time.
I had just seen him talking recently about something, and he talked about the lineage of some of your dad's band, and then you, and then I think then Steve Vai, and then Satriani.
Yeah. So he ended up being in my dad's band for the 1988 tour, and this was a few years prior to that. So
you have your little motley crew here, though, and actually Yachtly crew, if you remember correctly.
Yes.
And then for vocals the vocals were you did vocals, a lot of it. Moon did it. You have Bobcat doing it, and then you have your Yachtly crew gathering underneath it, which was you, Amit, Diva, Gail, I'm assuming Gail, your mom, Catherine, Fine, and Bob Rice. It has your dad doing production and Bob Stone, but you very much put succinctly that your dad did not do any of the music on it, though, any of the writing, any of the playing.
Yeah, that was one of those things that was a necessary thing at that time for people to have some indication that this was done while my dad was helping oversee it in a way. He didn't actually do any of the things that you were hearing. Mm-hmm. So it would have been fun to actually have him play on something, but at that time we didn't do anything like that.
I mean, in retrospect, I mean, yeah, it's not like you've ever outgrown people comparing you to your dad anyhow. Like you're really like, you're like, well, I'm gonna do this to prove myself that I'm separate from my dad, so I'll never be compared to him again.
Well, it wasn't a thing that I specifically said, oh, I must make sure this is on there. I think it was either my mom or my dad said, you should probably put that on there just to have, because I mean,
individual. Yeah,
it wasn't an edict that I said, hey, I can't have any association. If it was a suggestion that seemed to make sense, it was like, okay, fine, let's put that on there.
I mean, people are going to believe what they believe anyhow. I think it's cool though, myself. I love the fact it was, done on the Pumpkin label. Market Pumpkin label is really cool.
Yeah, I remember it didn't take too long to make the record. I, at that time, had a collection of songs, and we would record 3 or 4 basic tracks a day. The one that was the hardest to get down was Electric Hoedown, because that had that volume knob and delay thing. So you had to, it's the same technique that Edward Van Halen used for the Cathedral guitar solo thing on the Diver Down album.
Yeah.
which basically you use the volume knob to turn the guitar on, and you hit the string with your hand. So you hammer on, but you turn it on as you're hammering on, which gives it almost a bowing sound because you don't have the initial attack. You have it turning up as the note.
Okay. And I was thought you doing something like that. And I literally, I'm like, I got to ask him if that's, so it's like the first time I think I've actually pre-thought of what you're actually doing on the song.
Yeah.
I heard it.
So that was a tricky thing. So you would turn the volume knob on, play the note, and then you would just keep doing this. So the whole time that you're playing that song, you're turning the volume on just like this. It's constant turning the volume on and off while this hand plays the notes. And if for some reason you lost sync or one of the notes didn't come out, you can't punch in.
Okay.
You have to play the whole thing live. And it was with Scott Tunis and Chad Wackerman playing at the same time. So let's say I played my part correctly, but one of them messed up. Again,
the
you can't punch
you guys
in.
were all live. It wasn't like lay down bass tracks, then you could
Right.
play. Oh.
Yeah. So everybody had to play their part right and just get the whole performance. Now, I remember that we did probably 3 or 4 takes in the beginning and thought that we pretty much had it between those 3 or 4 takes. But then I thought, well, let's just try a few more. And we ended up doing maybe another 6 or 8 or maybe even 10 other takes. And then the volume knob broke. It just stopped working because it was just so much of this. So then it ended up being that I think it was one of the first 4 takes that, because there's no edits. It's just, it is what it is. But that's one of those things where it's hard to have a really good perspective of what it is in the time that you're doing it, unless it really stands out as, okay, that's definitively the very best one and you know it straight away. But there's all these variances in it because, I could be playing it right and they might not be playing it right, or vice versa. They might be playing it perfect and I didn't play it quite right. So it's that balance of which one should we use? Which one feels like it works with all of us doing everything?
It's crazy you didn't do it separate tracks, or is that, but that kind of your dad produced stuff anyhow, kind of everything at once? Because it feels like it opens up a can of worms. Like I know, you should do one track, like do a dummy track or whatever, but.
Yeah, well, in this case, I'm playing it and there's a delay that repeats. So if I play a note, the note happens and then the repeat of that note happens. So even if I try to play to a click track, there may still be a way for something to be a little bit off just because the way that I'm playing, it's just a really tricky thing to do. So it was better to get everybody having that ebb and flow all at once, because even if that delay is happening constantly, there's still a chance that you can be in front or behind the thing and you still can't edit that. Especially now you would be able to do it with a computer. You could overdub and do crossfades and all this kind of stuff.
Well, the thing is, if you really, besides, everyone's got to think about you're 15 years old and you're producing your dad. He's done these crazy compositions. You got an insane band and you're 15 and you're leading the whole crew, which is just crazy to think about to begin with. You've written these songs and you sing on most of them, or, you're jamming out to everything and your guitar is fantastic. So that's just incredible to think about. But the fact that, so some of these things, these songs and these stuff you do are still a little bit different and more tricky than most guitar players are doing back then, especially because it's analog and some punching and stuff. But then you've got your dad's producer and your dad who embrace doing things out of the box.
Yeah.
So like the very beginning, there wasn't like, well, that's ridiculous. This is how we're going to have to do it because that would be a pain in the ass, Dweezil. Your dad probably like, well, yeah, there's no way to do it, but whatever needs to be done,
I mean, I think the real point was with that record, try to play it as live as possible. So I definitely had songs where I played all the way through. It's just a single take. But I never had any on that record that I recall where it was all the way through plus the solo, like the way Van Halen would record. I usually would play the whole backing track and play the rhythm part underneath what the solo would be, and then overdub the solo on top of the backing track. But the reason that we could record 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 songs a day was that it was just guitar, bass, and drums. And oftentimes it didn't even have a doubled rhythm guitar. I mean, I think I would do certain things doubled, but we would just do a live pass, and then I might do an extra guitar and a couple of overdubs. But, you know, if you're just doing guitar, bass, and drums and no keyboards, and then the only thing left is some
Actually,
vocals.
it says it too. I'm going to step on you. It says no keyboards or synthesizers. Actually, it's written on the back of the album too, just in case everybody's questioning that out there. It's
Yeah, I think that was also part of it, because when you heard Electric Hoedown, it was possible to imagine that it could have been a keyboard of some sort. But
yeah, at the time it maybe, but like nowadays, knowing and then knowing how you
yeah,
play and knowing Van Halen, it's not the way. Let's start at the beginning. But so we'll start. The first song is "Having a Bad Day." It's it starts off kind of a punky, rocking song.
yeah.
When you wrote all these, did you have total control over like what your guide? Did you get any guidance from either the band saying, "Hey, when you do it, you might want to do this," or did they say, "You know what,
No, I
do
had
it"?
all the songs written even before we went in to make the record. So my dad had to listen to the stuff and was like, let's just do it like this and just make it really raw and make it what it is. I don't even think there's any background vocals for the most part on the
No, I
record,
don't think there is.
you
It's
know?
it is. It's a professionally. It is. It's kind of raw, but it's like professional too. It's got that
Yeah.
balance in it. Well, then that's my thing. I don't think your dad would have been heavy-handed. I think that's what was kind of like would be the opposite of what people would think of him being in the studio with you. It's like kind of like more like letting you be you. Like a father would let a son do baseball. He's just a musician that,
But the thing is, in retrospect, it would have been really a fun experience to have those additional things on there, background vocals or some other kinds of things that texturally could have supported some of the ideas and gone through that process of learning how my dad does that. If he was to arrange some harmonies or whatever, I think he just kind of wanted to stay out of the way and just kind of oversee what it was. It wasn't about trying to turn me into something.
Right. And I see that. And it's very respectful, actually, that it's him kind of respecting your growth at a certain level to see if he puts this stuff in there that may have shaped you a different way. You know what I mean? Early
It
on.
would have been fun, though, I think, in retrospect, to have that experience. At the time, I didn't really know that much about making records at all. So I just was going by whatever he said. When he would go, okay, that's good, let's move on. I'm like, okay. So it was a pretty quick process with most everything, just because he was the final arbiter of when the song was done. So we just kind of kept going.
Yeah.
I don't even recall spending that much time on solos. Sometimes I would double certain parts of things, but not always. So there's my favorite guitar players at the time used to, Edward Van Halen didn't do that much doubling, but Randy Rhoads did double, triple, quadruple tracks for things.
Right.
So sometimes I would want to do a little bit of either or to create some textures, but for the most part, I think it's pretty raw.
It is. Actually, you actually mentioned you give props to Eddie and to Randy in this one too. One of the few times I hear you mention Randy out loud.
Yeah. Well, he was a huge influence, and I really loved the way that he would construct guitar parts that would just they would all dovetail together. He was great with arranging and making certain things stand out. He wasn't trying to make everything sound exactly the same in each side. So he would hold out certain notes longer on purpose on one side versus the other. So you could hear these little changes. And even on a solo like Crazy Train, if you really listen, it's doubled, but actually some of the notes that he plays different notes, one on one side, one on the other, and they actually clash. Sometimes they might even be only a half step apart. And it gives you this weird sense of, wait a minute, everything was doubled perfectly up until there. You know, why did that one change? And it's one of those things where he could have doubled it exact, but he didn't. And I don't know why. Did he run out of time, or he said, this sounds better with a little bit of a rub right here? And it's cool stuff. I don't know what the answer is, but I like the result.
I like the idea that he probably liked it and left it as it was. He seemed like he was a smart guitar player, very,
Yeah.
Much of a musician more than a rock star. And it would have been interesting to see him move on without Ozzy or continued on afterwards.
Yeah, for sure.
Where we've gone with that. I mean, I think his guitar playing actually saved Ozzy on so many levels. I mean, that allowed him for his Zach's stuff. Otherwise, a regular guitar player just would have he would have blended into the background. He would have been Ozzy. That guitar playing is too smart. It's actually classy. It's like classy heavy metal. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and maybe it's that neo-classical influence he had as a teacher.
Well, if you look at a song like Goodbye to Romance or Tonight from the Blizzard of Oz record, these are ballad-esque songs, beautiful, but they have really sophisticated chord structure and harmony. And it's pretty wild because he was so young that he was writing in that style. So, you know, I love that. When I heard it, it really did expose me to different ideas of what was possible on the guitar. And, you know, in my own way, I took things as far as I could at that time when I was 15. And if you listen to Electric Hoedown, for example, that is doing the same technique as Cathedral, but it's at a faster tempo. But then it also has a song structure where the bass line and the drums and everything, they all go with what's happening. And there's weird time changes and other things that happen in it. It's not just straight up 4/4. And it's an interesting composition in the journey that it takes you on because of the contour of that delay and how it changes.
Well, it because a lot of our rock songs on here, that and, you know, Pirate Song and a couple of pieces really kind of set you up for the journey of the Dweezil Zappa albums in the future, that they're not going to be standard stock.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things that set the tone for having some variation from album to album and
right.
song.
But, you know, this is one of your earlier albums. Even being, you know, 15, you're already starting to set your own pace and, you know, doing that. So Having a Bad Day is just, you know, we went over that. So
Blonde, you know, that song, I remember the intro in particular. The correlation, even though they don't sound alike at all, but the correlation for the intro and the riff and the way it kind of comes together structurally is, I remember being inspired by the song Stone in Love by Journey.
Okay.
And there's a certain way that Neil Schon played on that song and in the intro that I was kind of going for a little bit of that vibe. Like, again, they don't sound like the same song, but there's
a punchiness I hear in Stone in Love, and I have to go back and listen to it now. But the Stone in Love, it feels like it has a real punchy feel.
Well, just the real intro is the part that relates to that song. Really not much else. But I remember there was a moment in time where Sandra Bernhard went on the David Letterman show, and she brought out this album cover and made a joke like, has this kid really ever had a bad day in his life? You know?
That's how you know you made it. Sanders made a remark about you, right? Back then. Yep. Blonde hair, brown nose.
Yeah. So that song, the title sort of came from, in the music industry at the time, there wasn't as much of this kind of behavior. There weren't that many girl bands or female artists that were in a rock genre where this would be applicable. But in the movie industry, there were a lot more women that would be, this concept would have been more applicable to. And the idea really was that there are people that when they hear about something, let's say it's an audition, and they're friends with somebody, their friend is going to an audition, like, oh, that's so great, congratulations. Where is that? When's that going to be? And then they try to get in, and it's the competition. They try to get the information, and then they try to somehow secure a position and try to get that job. And it's climb over people and do whatever you can. But it's that false humility and that virtue signaling that was happening then, where that's kind of what that song is about, where it's just kind of like, okay, somebody, they get their sights set on something, and they're going to do whatever they can to get there.
Yeah, there's a couple of verses in there. I feel like, or when they find the right person, they'll do what it needs to do to get there. It feels like,
yeah,
it's definitely, it jumps out. It does. It feels like the ultimate. Gonna put a button in it for Hollywood. This is exactly,
Well, at the time, I was also doing little things having to do with film stuff, and I was getting little jobs here or there, and I was auditioning for TV parts and movie parts. And it wasn't long after the record came out that I actually was dating Molly Ringwald, who was the most popular teen actress of the time.
Yeah.
So I was around a lot of the Hollywood.
That's right, because you were in Pretty in Pink, weren't you? At the
for a
the
moment,
table.
yeah. And in one of the scenes in Pretty in Pink, in the record store where Molly Ringwald's character worked, and Annie Potts was the record store owner, they had the single of the week, and it was in the shot, and it was the "My Mother is a Space Cadet" single.
I didn't catch that one.
In the background.
It was on that not that long ago, like, well, maybe in the past like year. At this point in my life, everything's not that long ago. And I was watching it with my family, and I'm like, I did Dweezil Zappa? Like, like subliminally, you pop into my life every now and then.
Yeah, it was definitely a small bit part, but it was a John Hughes film, and it was a funny little experience to have. But I remember we were filming in some music club, and my line was really just a throwaway line where one of the other characters who only also had one line said to my character, "Hey, Simon, what would you do if your dad came home a rich man?" And I'm watching the band, and then I just turned to that character, who I think the character's name was Alex, maybe. And I just said, "Kiss his ass." So that was the magic right there.
I love the fact you still remember it now.
Yeah. Well, there's very few things like that I remember really well. I do remember the very first on-stage acting thing I ever had to do was in a school play. We had to do a version of St. George and the Dragon, and it was, I think it was like a 5th grade presentation, and I had to be Beelzebub, who only had one line, and it was something like, "In come I, old Beelzebub, on my shoulder I carry a club, in my hand a frying pan. Aren't I a jolly old man?" Yeah. So
it's funny that you remembered, or just how ridiculous the lines were.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. Well,
You Can't Ruin Me. Now that is Moon singing on that one.
Yep, Moon sang 2 songs on the record. That one,
and Talk About. And I thought
let's talk about it. I think it's those 2. Maybe she sang parts on I Want a Yacht, maybe.
I think. Well, yeah, Bobcat kind of stole the act on that one, though.
Yep.
Really can't focus when he's talking about buying a yacht and going to Nebraska, and we'll get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. So the You Can't Ruin Me has some tapped harmonics that are tapping out some of the minor chords and things. And of course, that's a Van Halen style technique. And that's kind of really the inspiration for that song, is a Van Halenized kind of moment. But I think with all the songs, and I haven't listened to these in 20 plus years.
No, you're gonna need a record player because it's hard to find out in digital download.
Yeah.
Trust me.
I'll have to get them onto my site at some point.
I think you have like 2 on that site.
Yeah, there are two because I had those available, but I didn't have the rest. But the what I remember is that there are certain things at the time when I would write songs, I didn't really have any sense of the structure in terms of knowing that it's 4 bars of 4 and 2 bars of 5 or whatever the time signature stuff is. But I know in a lot of my songs there would be sort of tags where there'd be a bar of 2 or some other things that made stuff not normal length and just but it was the music flowed a certain way and I would just learn it and write it and play it that way. And then the other musicians would have to figure out what it was and why the phrasing was that. And they could do that. That was easy for them to do. But I never knew what it was. Occasionally they would say, oh, this is an odd time or this is something unexpected, but yet it went the way it went. So I know I Want a Yacht has a bunch of those kind of weird moments like that.
Well, I'm gonna say, first off, I've listened to music so long, hearing the weird changes, it didn't jump out as me as like being you didn't really know what you're doing or you're unprepared, because that's just how you've evolved as a songwriter. You take left turns all the time, you know.
Yeah.
Now, being that age and doing that, it could have gone to you just becoming a really crappy songwriter who just couldn't, you know, follow a row. But clearly, what was imprinted in the wheelhouse, the chip in your brain, was more of a different flow for songwriting. It wasn't so much about that, where you kind of took it, break the rules, make the rules and break the rules type of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know any different because I really didn't listen to
really bad,
a lot of other music up until I was 12 or 13. I really only heard my dad's music. And there's so many things that have twists and turns and changes in time signature that was just normal to me. I remember feeling like sometimes things that were in 5 or 7 felt more normal to me than stuff that was in 4. It was just what I was used to hearing, I guess.
Well, it's your father's music. I mean, I think once I went back and I started listening to him and really got through the first Zappa phase of listening to him too, I think it really changed my perspective on a lot of music when I go back to listen to it. You know, back in my 20s, I mean, it really changed things. So I couldn't even imagine that being like your first imprint and then living with the person that does that. I mean,
well, yeah. I mean, let's take a song like "Don't Hit the Yellow Snow" for example. That's in 7, but you wouldn't really ever think, "Oh, this is odd time." It's just it feels good. It's got a flow,
yes.
It's got a groove, and the whole thing. So you don't have to be thinking or worrying about it, but it's stuff like that where naturally it's a cadence or a contour that it just feels a certain way, and that's how. It's just how it is, you know. So that's what I got used to. So I wouldn't say that the majority of everything I've ever written is in odd time, but there's plenty of stuff that does have odd time elements in it, just because it sounds good and feels good to have that variation.
And speaking of sounding good, was that one of the first times you had your sister really sing a song out?
Yeah, that was definitely the first time that we had a chance to do that. When I was writing the songs, I would play guitar and she would sing. But the first time hearing it with the whole band was doing the recording.
Well, because you guys have a great back and forth dynamic. I mean, focus on the you two are the siblings. I mean, because you guys have been the most prolific working together on some of these pieces.
Yeah.
And she has a great voice. I don't remember. Did Valley Girl come out before this? So
no. Well. Yes, it did.
Only because it feels like that she did this, and then we'll get to the next single you had with her. I'd almost felt like she was also on her way to having her own solo single career at one point. You know what I mean?
Yeah, she didn't end up doing music as much because she was focusing more on acting and getting jobs in movies and TV stuff. So it was right around that same time that she got the part in European Vacation, the Chevy Chase, Beverly D'Angelo movie. And it filmed in Rome. And I went there with her. My mom was there. So that was a fun thing. But that was a pretty busy year right around that time.
Yeah. It's great. I mean, I guess my point is I really like her voice. I really always liked her voice. And when you guys work together, I think you guys have had a really good chemistry.
Oh, thanks.
So, pirate song.
Well, the pirate song is, for me, I've always liked film music, and there was something about this song that was evocative of fight scenes in a movie with pirates, you know? So there was times where I could envision I'm doing some riff where I'm playing these harmonics, and there's also some percussive chord stabs. These things kind of represented two ships across from each other firing cannonballs at the other side, you know? So I could visualize all this stuff. And then there's a part where it gets kind of tricky for a little bit and it gets fast. And that's the sword fighting part, you know? So that's towards the end. And all those kind of things were things I was thinking about when I wrote it, but it's kind of a rock instrumental without a solo, but there's parts where the whole band is playing a guitar solo section. Mm-hmm. You know, it's really structured and composed like that, where that was just how I envisioned it at the time. If I was to write that song today, I would probably add some other little textures to bring it to life even more. But that was as composed as I could make it at that time.
Yeah, you can't imagine.
Oh, and Moon sings that one too, right?
I believe so. Yep.
Oh no, that's me.
You do it. You do it. I thought Moon does some vocals in it, but they're not listed.
Yeah, I can't.
You. It's you getting the crap.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've heard it. I get that one and You Can't Ruin Me confused because they both start with the same two first words. Yeah.
That one's a pretty fast song though, it feels like.
Yeah. And I think that one might have some odd time things in it. I don't remember all the solos, which ones, like Blonde Hair, Brown Nose, I remember was probably the most technically crazy solo. I remember that one started with a lick where it was a hammer on and then two fingers, and it was a pattern that used more than one finger tapping. And at that time, there weren't many players, if any, that were doing multiple fingers in that style. Everybody was doing more of the Van Halen thing. And so I was adding a few extra. And I remember Allan Holdsworth had come to the house around that time too. And he saw me practicing the little opening to that. And he's like, oh, that's cool that you're using more than one finger to do those things. And he showed me some stuff, which of course his hands, he could stretch way further than I could. And I was like, wow, I can't even make that
Can your hands even stretch that way now?
Yeah. So it was cool. And over the years, I would sometimes get a chance to stay in touch with him. And he eventually ended up playing live on stage with us during a few shows on the Zappa Play Zappa tour. And one of the funniest things was that we played at the House of Blues in Anaheim, and it was on Valentine's Day. Now, date night for Zappa fans, very few women like to go to a Zappa style show, you know, so this is like, it's mostly guys out there in the audience. But, you know, on Valentine's Day, a couple of guys turned it into date night, and some of the women came along to the show to see if they could enjoy any of what was on offer. But one of the things that we did to make it more Valentine's Day friendly was there was that movie that was popular years earlier, which was Patrick Swayze and Jennifer Grey, the Dirty Dancing movie. And there was that song, I've Had the Time of My Life, which was the big, huge hit from that. So we learned that song. And then we had Allan Holdsworth play a guitar solo on it. So the juxtaposition of that song, which is so commercial and so known for being what it was, you know, a movie theme and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then you throw this completely ridiculous atonal guitar solo on it to essentially ruin the song, but in the best possible way. That was my contribution to Valentine's Day that evening, was to be able to get Allan Holdsworth to play a guitar solo, because he disregarded the harmony of that song and just did what he did, you know, and it was hilarious because I imagined, like, what if he played on the original? What if that song was that way and it had this 3-minute Allan Holdsworth guitar solo in the middle of it, and it was still a hit? That would have been the funniest, weirdest thing to happen.
It is the best. The setup for that, like the one night they finally go, they're gonna go there, then they probably get excited, they hear the song, and then they hear the solo, and they just totally don't get it. So it's like a double punch.
Yeah. I gotta find. I know I have a recording of it somewhere.
Oh my God, you gotta put that out so people can hear it, because that is just, well, just to hear him play too is just on its own. But the double comic punch on that is just,
yeah, it's definitely one of the most wrong things in the most right way, and that was something that I was always a fan of, is trying to do something unexpected, take a little twist. Like when I did Staying Alive on the Confessions album, that was kind of the same concept, which was take a song that people know a certain way and just twist it in a different direction. And not because you're making fun of it, but because you're saying, hey, this will be fun to do this. And it might have a comic element of it,
right,
but it's also musically, it's got some weight to it in a good way. And so that was what was funny about Allan Holdsworth,
especially
doing like a deep solo on this song, you know. So
I want to hear that. That is awesome. Well, I mean, you've done that though. You've done it to a lot of songs where, and I almost think it's at this point, and some people think the joke's gone over their heads because the technicalness of how you play a song is really good, but it being tongue in cheek, the people just don't get it at some level. You know what I mean? Because you've done some more popular artists in the past few years where it's like, it sounds like a really good version, like a better version of actually their song is what it sounds like now.
Well, I think one of the ones that stands out like that was the cover of the Britney Spears song.
Exactly what I'm thinking of.
Super heavy version of that.
Sounds way better.
Baby, Hit Me One More Time, which that song is a super catchy song.
Yeah.
And the thing about catchy songs is you might not think, oh, well, this song will stand the test of time. But if it's super catchy, first of all, it takes a lot of skill and talent to be able to come up with something that is so instantly hooky that just jumps into your brain and doesn't want to leave, you know? So I think a lot of that Max Martin stuff, even though you could say that elements of it follow a certain kind of template or a structure, it's still amazingly well crafted. And that was one of those songs where I liked the sound of the song as it was, but then to put all this super heavy guitar and do some of these things to dirty it up a bit was a fun thing to do.
You did. It was funny. It was good. It's actually a good version of it.
Oh, thanks.
You know, made it much more palatable for my house of that Britney Spears was playing. I'm like, all right, if we're going to do it.
But that one tune of hers, I don't actually know who wrote it, but Toxic.
Yep.
I think that's one of the best pop songs, production-wise, melodically, and all that stuff. It really is pretty crafty, just as is, with the cool orchestral. It's almost like Indian style.
Oh, that breakdown in it.
Well, it's got like the James Bond guitar kind of thing, but then it's got the string parts that are they're kind of a little out of tune in the way that you would hear on Bollywood Indian music. So it's cool. I just like those textures, the way they used them.
I can hear that. It is better of them. I have to go back and listen to it now. I really kind of don't know a lot of Britney songs. It's not high on my list. So while we're talking Hollywood, and let's talk about it, because that's too bad of a pun, not putting it as being a dad and saying the pun. You have a video for this also, but was this probably the beginning of the Robert Wagner? I can't say a trilogy. Was this it?
Well, this was the first time he was in a video. Yeah. Okay. So this video has a few different celebrity cameos, which was,
Oh, can I guess one? Like one of them, Charlie Sexton, right?
yeah, he's in there.
I love him. And was it Daphne Zuniga from like
Yeah,
Melrose?
Daphne Zuniga's in there.
Okay, that's all I got. Then I'm done. So you.
Okay, so the thing starts with Don Johnson doing the
Yep.
clapboard. So the thing, it was set up to make it look like the entire crew that made the video was celebrities. Like Don Johnson's doing the clapboard. He's part of the camera crew,
Yeah.
right? And then you have, I think it was Charlie Sexton came out with the tape measure
Yep.
to set up the camera distance. Vince Neil is holding a camera and he's filming, and then you see him pan down, and he pans down to Drew Barrymore.
Wait, is he wearing like a wig or something then?
No, but there's a guy next to him who's holding part of the camera apparatus, and I can't remember who that was, but it was, so Vince Neil's holding the camera, and then he pans down to Drew Barrymore, who's sitting on the ground doing something. Maybe she was holding the microphone, I think.
Yeah.
And then Jane Fonda is doing craft service.
That was her?
Yeah. And then Robert Wagner is sitting in a chair next to my dad, and they exchange what they're reading. Like my dad was reading, I don't know, I don't remember. One was reading like the New York Times, and one was reading the Wall Street Journal or whatever. So they swapped newspapers. And who else is in this? I can't remember who else.
I can't, because some of them looked familiar and I wasn't sure, and I felt like there's more, but then I was looking at it, I wasn't. And then I was just Robert Wagner drunk to begin with.
Yeah.
It always kills me to see him in it because he's so funny.
Yeah, there were a few different movie people and music people, and it was just one of those things where we kind of made it happen. I can't remember. I think the director of the video, can't remember his name now, but I think he had done a Smithereens video, and we were just trying to see if we could make a really low budget video, but have these celebrity cameos to make it seem like, again, like, oh, let's do a really low budget video where all the celebrities are actually the ones that made the video. Like they filmed it and whatever. Yeah, that was the joke behind it.
Which is pretty funny. And I think one of my favorite parts of the video is how well you and your sister are just laughing. You can tell it's not planned. Some of it you're pushing into her and you're doing stuff. You can tell it's just you guys mucking it up. And for the director, that he's felt like this is his camera magic. I'm just gonna sit back and record it because
it was a fun time to make the thing. I mean, we did the whole thing in one day. It wasn't a super early morning with a super late ending. We just kind of did it. I remember it was a bit of a challenge to relearn the solo to try to play it note for note in the video. So that was important too, to have the guitar solo represented and seen on camera. Because one of my pet peeves generally in all filming of musical content is when it's edited, for whatever reason, usually somebody's making a poor editorial choice and cutting to something that you're not hearing. I like to see what I'm hearing. Mm-hmm. So if there's a guitar solo, a normal director or editor is going to cut to a background dancer doing something, or start making it turn into, oh, here's the part where we get to show the narration of the events. And it's like we can show you part of the storyline. We don't need to see the guitar solo. Well, let's see the car chase. So it's that kind of stuff that drives me nuts. And even when I'm doing live video editing for things like the DVD, the Zappa Plays Zappa DVD, which I edited, you always see, sometimes even in split screen, who's playing what. And there's as much coverage of what you're hearing as you're seeing it as possible. And that's really one of the things that will take place in the DVD that I'm starting to get finished, which is the whole Apostrophe film. When we played the Apostrophe album and George Duke played with us, but I want to be able to work on the audio some more so that I can do an Atmos mix of it. And so that's going to take a little time, but the editing of that is completed, and you will always see what you're hearing on screen. Like I said, sometimes it'll be split screen and it might be multiple split screens or boxes like Brady Bunch style, so you can see what is happening all at once. And I think that makes it much more interesting for the listener to hear the music and recognize, wait, that's what you have to do to play that song. If you look at a video, like on my website right now, you could look up the video for St. Alfonso's Pancake Breakfast, which is from that concert and from that film. And you'll see how hard it is to play that stuff, especially on the guitar. It looks fake because my fingers are going so many places, but that's what you have to do to play that.
I think I'm gonna say 2 points off that. First off, sometimes when you play something fast, it looks like your hands are running slow, but you're playing something fast. It's a very, I can't put my thumb on it. I was watching sometimes, I'm like, it feels like you're playing it very slow, but it's like really fast. Do you know what I'm talking about? Just the way you play.
Well, there's certain things that make sense for that, because what happens with some of the things that I do, there's a whole economy of motion thing that has developed in my playing. So if I wanted to take a grouping of 5 notes and I wanted to create that over 3 strings on the guitar, I would do a downstroke and then I would pull off. So there'd be 2 pull-offs. The left hand would play 2 notes, the right hand would function to play 1. So
okay.
And so what would happen there is I would either do 3 notes on 1 string and then 2 notes on 1 or 2 other strings, or I would do 2 notes on 1 string and 3 notes. Like, so the picking would be like downstroke and then a pull off and then up, up, up. So when you hear it, you're hearing da 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 da, but it looks like I'm not doing much because it's hidden. Those 3 notes are hidden.
The play smart, not work smart type of thing.
Yeah. So it's like 1 pull off 3, 1 pull off 3,
okay.
1 pull
so
off 3.
It was a compliment, of course, I was putting out there, but a wordless compliment, if I may.
Well, but that's what makes it sound like there's so much more going on. And when you look at it, it doesn't seem to make sense because you're hearing a waterfall. Like and then it made so much sense because it was very compact, the stuff that he did. And what you realize when you really have played guitar for a long time and you're able to play a lot of fast stuff, the less distance between things, the faster that you can play stuff. So the fastest players, their fingers are not jumping off the neck and looking like a spider like this because that takes too much time. They're really kind of much more uniform and really close to the fretboard. And then the pick is the same. You're not flailing away like this. It's really small little things that happen. So that change in that really, I guess, the economy of motion and trying to make sure that there's no wasted space. That's where you get the ability to play really complicated, articulated stuff and play it really fast.
But that was a snapshot you got. That back then, everybody else had the shot from the Civic Center, 30,000 feet back of him with his back doing this.
Yeah.
You at least got 15 minutes of him showing you something up close that we all get to see now, though, on video.
Yeah, it made a huge difference to see it up close. And then, of course, Steve Vai always had really good, solid technique, and I would see him play up close. My dad's technique was totally different because he could play fast, but he did everything in a really idiosyncratic way. His picking technique generally looked like it was really plucky, like this. So it was almost like a chicken. And I've made this comment before where it was like the battle between the chicken and the spider. So he would play and it would look like this. And I was like, what the hell is that? Because it didn't look like other stuff that I had seen that was more compact. So the way that he would do stuff, even when he did really fast stuff, sometimes he wouldn't pick like that. Sometimes he would just have his finger and he could make his finger wiggle really fast, which I could never do. I'd have to do it like this, but he could get the finger to wiggle super fast and get that really fast tremolo picking kind of thing. So that's like a fast twitch muscle thing that I don't even know. I've never seen anybody else be able to do that. It's very strange. Well, at the time I was doing a little bit of work on MTV. People thought I was on there more than it was, but I only did 12 weeks over a period of 2 years doing some of this VJ stuff. And I had made this video which MTV played a few times, and it promoted this record. And I remember it got on there. I don't know. I mean, I maybe saw it on air twice ever, but it got on there for a few weeks. They played it a few times.
I saw it a few times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all right. So then we talked about the Electric Hoedown, which we've talked about, your Cathedral Secrets version, which is a pretty fun thing.
Yeah. At one point, when I was on Chrysalis Records for the next album, My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama, they also picked up an option to distribute Having a Bad Day, and they wanted to do a video for Electric Hoedown. And we set out to make this video where the idea was that if you had a camera up here in a big soundstage, you could have a white floor, and then you could write out music notation, staff paper basically, and you could have dancers dancing up and down the staff, right? So it was going to be something where I was going to be in a tuxedo like the conductor, and then I was going to play along, but then we would have some dancers that were dressed as music notes, and they were going to do this thing, but they really just didn't have it together, and it didn't look that good. So I was like, fuck this, we're not going to put this out. So I don't know where any of that footage is, but I had a guitar at the time that was painted like a slice of watermelon, or like a broken watermelon.
Oh, I've seen that one.
So it had on the body, it was mostly the green skin part, but then where the pickup was, it was like there was a rip through the watermelon, like it broke. And so you could see the fruit part and the seeds. And then the headstock was like a slice of watermelon. So I had that guitar that I used in that video, but it doesn't exist anywhere. You know, I've never seen the footage show up anywhere.
I like the fact that you actually push back on that, like at that age, because let's face it, most people, you know, heavy metal is full of it. Well, I didn't know what to say. I mean, I had a contract. It was my first chance. I didn't really like it, but I did it because what are you going to do? Whereas you're like, yeah.
Yeah. Like, even during the filming, I was saying, hey, this is not good. You know, I'm not going to even keep doing this. And so by the very fact that I wouldn't let it be completed, that right there was, if you don't film all the parts, they don't have a chance to make it and put it out.
That's pretty funny.
Yeah.
Clearly your upbringing and having enough pride and belief in yourself probably.
Well, it was just definitely one of those things where I did not want to have it ruin the song for people either, because that was, I thought, a pretty interesting tune. But to have a visual go with it in perpetuity that could ruin the music.
No, I agree. And then the concept of them picking up an album that's already been out by somebody else on, even it was your dad's label, and then to want to put a song out, an instrumental, feels like a weird release for a company to do anyhow.
It was a strange thing at the time. We did do a video for the My Guitar Wants to Kill Your Mama song, which I'm sure we'll talk about if we get around to talking about that record. But that one was really a fun video to make. And again, Robert Wagner was in it. He was a detective in it, but that was made to be like a 50s exploitation film, you know. It was pretty fun.
I love that one. So Yachtly Crew. Let's talk about Yachtly Crew.
Yeah.
Yachtly Crew performed on I Want a Yacht. So
some background singing happening on that. And so this was a jokey song. So at one point, I had an uncle who had called up the house, and for whatever reason, he was not in a particularly great mood at that moment. And he just screamed, "I want a yacht," into the phone as loud as he could. So I was like, that's going to be a good song, you know? So it was this idea that you could just demand, you could call someone and just demand that they buy you a yacht. And that was the idea of this song. And at the time, Bobcat Goldthwait was a really popular stand-up comedian with some pretty hilarious things that he was doing. And I had gone to one of his concerts and I got a chance to meet him. And I said, hey, I've got this song that I'm doing. Would you be interested in playing this character who just demands to have a yacht? And he said, yeah, sure, let's do it. So he came over and we recorded it. And I think it probably took about an hour. And you just hear him do his Bobcat Goldthwait character. And then he's talking about wanting a yacht. And towards the end of the song, the music gets a little bit strange because I wanted it to feel like the record was skipping. So we played the skip. So when you hear it, it's like, I want a yacht, bought by, I want a yacht, bought by, and it's like these kind of weird things, but we played it. It wasn't edited. We just played it so it would sound like if there was a skip in the record.
I feel like I want to cry.
That one was almost like a country song in a way. And I remember working out that guitar solo was a little tricky because it was on a clean sound and I didn't really have that much knowledge about getting some personality out of a clean sound. You need to know a bit more about compression and some other things to make that happen. So I didn't have a good compressor that I was using at the time. You can do it later on in the mix or find something as you're in the studio and get a good compression sound.
Yeah.
But my dad just wanted me to play just as I played and didn't really change the tone or anything. So all the sounds were pretty much, okay, that's just what that Carvin amp sounds like on the clean channel. And I had this 4 effect rack mount unit that was made by Ibanez, and it had a chorus, a compressor, a flanger, and a delay. And that's what I had. I just plugged into the amp, or I think I might have had to plug into that unit in front of the amp. But that was the extent of it. And then it was a 412 cabinet, which they put a couple mics on. And so I had a foot switch to go from clean to dirty channel amp. And I think pretty much the whole song, that one was just all clean. So that's what I remember about that.
And the lyrics are very countryish. And I mean, it's one thing about you. You've always been very upfront and honest about emotions, no matter what. You weren't influenced by a time period of the rock lyrics, the time, or the pop lyrics, you know?
Well, the thing is, if you're a 15-year-old, chances are you don't have that much life experience. You're going to write whatever you can that seems to tell a story, or, so those songs, I mean, it's not like it's the world's greatest lyric writing, but I was 15 and I was more excited about playing guitar than it was about singing or writing lyrics. But it was like, oh, I have to do this. All right, I'll hear this.
Well,
I guess.
What I'm saying is, I mean, you were hang out with Warren DeMartini and the like. So I mean, Van Halen, lyrics are like, I think I want to cry, are a little more adult than a lot of bands that you were listening to.
Yeah.
And for your age group too, I'm saying you were very upfront about, you had your own style even then, lyrically.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it just was kind of whatever it was. I didn't think too hard about, I got to be like this or I got to be like that. It was just, what can I make that will work with this? I guess this will work.
I think that's why it stands up, because I've been listening and doing some interviews with people, legacy bands from that time period. And everyone was kind of felt like they had to do the same thing. So as we talk about this album and you're like, no, I'm not going to do that video. Like, it goes against the grain of like all the other adults are like, I didn't know what to do. I mean, they had the contract, and you know what I mean? And you're like, nope. Or they're like, shout at the devil. And you're like, no, I feel sad I can cry, and I'm 17 and I'm going to say it. It's an adult.
I was only 15 when I made the record. Yeah.
On that one. Right. So I'm saying, but like to all these early years, you've pretty much had your own adult attitude, I guess, Well,
for better or worse, that's how it turned out.
I'd say better. We're talking.
Okay.
One of the things you don't and maybe I mean some songs you do it, but I just am saying in general, you don't do like straight out like a lot of acoustic guitar. Is there a
I've never had acoustic guitars.
that's Eddie Van
They've been
Halen's line, right?
around.
I never had an acoustic guitar.
Yeah, they've been around, but I haven't really played them much. And I think the most acoustic stuff I did was on Go With What You Know. There's a few acoustic songs. There's definitely some acoustic in the What the Hell Was I Thinking record.
Mhm.
A couple interesting things there. But I guess one of the reasons that I never really played acoustic much is that the strings are typically much heavier and my fingers just can't tolerate it because they don't callus. It takes a really long time to build up any kind of rough skin. And even when there is a little bit of it, if I take a shower and then play guitar 10 minutes later, it will just cut all that stuff off.
What?
Yeah. So my skin doesn't stay protected or calloused. So it feels like the strings are like slicing through my fingertips. And during this time that I haven't played since COVID shut everything down, if I play guitar even for 5 minutes, like I tried the other day for a couple, it is seriously painful. It's like starting over again. I'll have to play for probably 2, 3, 4 weeks to get some time.
They're all light strings too, right?
Yeah, well, I always played really light strings because my dad did. He played in the 70s. He was using sevens for high E. It was like 7 through 36
What?
was his. Yeah, it was really light strings. And by 1988, he had 9 through 38, which was pretty much what Van Halen used.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, Billy Gibbons, he also had really light strings, 8s,
Yeah.
maybe even 7s at times. But so I was used to playing light strings on an electric guitar. If I picked up an acoustic guitar, I could barely play.
You're like Mr. Burns. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy. I mean, I went through a phase where I was trying like light and heavy. You know, you got that phase and you start playing, and you're like, I'm gonna try every string I can. You mix them around, you're flipping the sets around. I can do mediums. I almost think like there's a skill to doing light strings, like to really do justice with light strings. It's pretty challenging because you can overstring it. Well, I know, but at some level, if you're really kind of cranking out, you can be breaking strings. You really gotta know it, be able to finesse it. Is what I'm saying.
Well, I think a lot of people, when they're playing, they do strum or hit too hard, which with light strings, if you do that, yes, you could break them, but also you're going to knock them out of tune.
Right.
Because as soon as you hit the string, it rebounds and it does this whole thing. So the rebound part of it is where it goes the most out of tune until it settles into the pitch. So if you hit a light string really hard, it's going to go way sharp on the rebound. And so you just learn to hit it lighter. Which Eddie Van Halen hit really light. He was using light strings and light picks. So people thought, oh, such a heavy sound, but he really used light touch for everything.
Yeah, but I'm saying, I think that's what it is really learning how to not hit so hard. I just think that's a hard concept for some people, you know, and that's why.
For sure. My friend Blue Saraceno, he hits so hard. The moment he'll play a guitar that has light strings, it's like they fret out. He just can't. He can't make it work. He hits it too hard. But the very same guitar, I could play it and it would sound fine. But the moment he plays it, it's like, this thing is broken.
For a moment, we'll talk about blues. And talk about your
that one episode from.
I wasn't even going to save the particular episode stuff, but we can talk about the paper bag. But yeah, people need to watch it. And the one we're referring to right now is blues. And that's self-deprecating, but he's
running with the Dweezil podcast.
Running with Dweezil, thank you. There's about him that really puts it out there, probably make all us layman guitar players feel good about ourselves, because him being as good as he is, he points out things and he's like, I didn't think I could do this. Or I mean, like, he really puts himself down on certain levels, and he's such a good guitar player.
Yeah.
And he's also so funny. The stories are hilarious. I don't even want to ruin it by talking about it, but I almost crashed the car driving to work.
That was talking about his
concert.
You know, there's a story where he tells a story about a paper bag in the episode, the first episode about women and children first. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the podcast, it's worth checking out. But the thing is, I've known him for 30 years, and that was the first time I was hearing that story. And
How?
he's telling that story. And what's so crazy is that we lose it where we can't stop laughing. And those kind of moments, when you capture something like that, when that's being recorded, it doesn't matter if you stepped in the middle of it or you didn't even catch what triggered it. The laughing and the inability to get it together, like anybody can get in on that feeling of what that is. And it's going to put a smile on your face just to hear what happens there.
The story, and it's very contagious. It says like this, it's like the sneeze at the grocery store. When one person does it, it's 5 people it rows down. You two start laughing. It's infectious. I don't think I've ever heard you laugh so much. Like,
no, it takes like almost 2 minutes solid for us to try to get back on track.
I was like crying on the way going to work, and I knew parts of it because we had talked about it prior the night before, you and I, and I heard it. I was like, oh my God, I wasn't prepared for this.
But it's that kind of thing where you try to talk and you can't, and your voice just goes up and up and up, and you just start laughing again.
It was good, and you had your little callbacks throughout the thing. With callbacks on it, it was pretty funny. So I recommend that.
But I used to see my dad capture that kind of stuff in the studio too, and he loved that kind of stuff. If you could get that to happen, that would make it to a record. So there's a song called "I Come From Nowhere," where the vocals are so out of tune on purpose, and the singing style and what is the lyrics and everything and the delivery of it. He called me into the studio and he said, "You got to listen to this." And he pressed play on that song, and I'm listening to it. I'm going, what is going on here? And he was laughing so hard. It was tears, and he melted out of his chair. Like he just like slid, and he was on the floor, and he was beating the ground. He was laughing so hard. And it was that kind of stuff. And he loved the idea that somebody would listen to this song and have no idea that this was not really intended to be serious. But they might hear it and go, why is that guy singing that way? Why is that so bad? But yet it's so perfectly bad in the best possible way. So that's the kind of stuff I grew up with, seeing that stuff happen. And if you can have that moment captured, it's one of those great things to live back and, look back and remember.
It is funny. I actually want to comment more on the Dweezil, the Dweezil. I'm a couple in. I'm going to say it's each episode and each artist speaks differently, and there's this thing to what they say. And it's really great because I think you really get into the core of people, and it brings you back. I'm remembering my first time with these albums. It's touchstone. You know what I mean? It's really each episode is really good on its own. They're all standalone, so just not blues. What I'm saying, but like each one really can evoke. I think it's gonna touch everybody like in a spot where they're gonna go back. I remember that, and then you have to go back and you listen to the album. Like the Van Halen album. What was it? Women, Children First. At the end. Is it Women, Children First?
Oh yeah, the one where it had the secret song.
I mentioned it. I was going to tell you. So I never heard that.
Yeah,
on my cassette.
They did a version where it wasn't on there, and I
had it.
It at some point because I had different copies of that record, and it was on some and not on others. So it was a piece of music that they had intended to fade out the record, and then when they made their next record, it was going to fade back in, and you would hear the rest of the song. But they didn't end up doing that. They just faded out on Women and Children First, but then Mean Streets was the first song on Fair Warning. So they skipped the idea of fading out on that other.
But it's crazy because I had never heard that. And so to people listening, it's like one snippet. There's so many little million pieces in each episode. You're going, what? Wait, what?
Yeah.
Like, I can't tell you, like, I have to go back and play it again and hear, because then, like, blues will be like, oh, there's this. And you're like, what? Let's go back. And then you have little sound effects and little pieces in it that are funny. And it's really, it's a
well, there's even another thing on a different level of that too, where he's like, yeah, you remember the Van Halen logo with the eagle talons? I'm like, there's no Van Halen logo with eagle talons. It's like, I could have swore there was one. And then he does a Google search and he finds one. He goes, there it is. And I'm like, I've never seen that one, but it was
That was one
part
of the things I thought that too.
official
Like,
merch, you know.
he's hilarious.
Yeah.
Together, you guys have good chemistry. That's hilarious. But
Well, I think we're going to end up doing a podcast of our own where we just talk about all kinds of stuff, whether it's guitar or anything in life, just because it's just turn the recorder on and go for an hour and whatever happens, happens.
so with that Roxy, with that guitar, I mean, you have a couple made it for yourself at this point, right?
Yeah.
Are there going to be a series of them, or is there ever going to be any kind of own?
I think they're done. You know, they just did that one initial run, which I don't remember how many it was, like 150 or 200 of them, I think. And the goal was to make an instrument as close to the one that my dad played, but make it as affordable as possible, because a lot of the artist guitars tend to be very expensive. And this one, I don't remember what the price was at the time, but it was something like $2,600 or $2,700, which was really cheap for an artist guitar. And I think they're more than that now, but because a lot of these other signature ones start at 5,000.
And that's my whole point. Like, I'm looking at Eddie, and I've seen years, like, and of all guitars that should still be being made, that's one of the guitars that I love personally. It's up there with Eddie's style guitar.
Yeah.
It's the sound, the look of it. You would think there'd be like more, you know what I mean? The production line, it would be every year they'd kind of cranking those out because
nope. They made them special, just a few, you know.
Oh, it's a good guitar. It's awesome. As usual, this has been fun.
Did we get through the whole record?
Yeah, that was it. You didn't do a long album. There's no bonus tracks. There's no nothing. That was fast.
Well, you know, speaking of bonus tracks, I do know that we did record at least one other song at that time, and it didn't make it to the record. The song at the time was called Stupid Love Songs, and it had a pretty cool guitar riff and stuff. And that song did have harmonies in the chorus, and I don't remember, we either ran out of time or something happened, and we just didn't finish that song.
Is it out there still? Do you have it?
That one up.
So do you have it somewhere in your computer archives that are in your closet?
I haven't seen it or heard it in years. I do remember the main riff, but I don't think I remember what the lyrics were supposed to be. So if I ever did want to do a version of the song, I could conjure up the music, but I'd have to write some new lyrics to it.
I want to write that riff down and add it. You know, so when I was looking this up on your sheet music on the album itself, I was looking at tonight. It's actually a little printout, and I always love this stuff. Molly, we know who Molly is.
Yep.
Aw.
There you go. So handwritten.
So I'll be able to see it. Well,
there you go.
So that's pretty in pink. What's crazy is you give yourself all the credit on this one, but on the interwebs, which is sometimes it's not right. You're not going to believe this. In the Having a Bad Day and Blonde Hair, it actually gives credit to your father and Scott for writing those songs. Nope. I know that, but I was wondering if you have any. And I Want a Yacht has your dad, Scott, and Gail Zappa as credit. It's just crazy. It's crazy. I would have actually thought Mickey Rooney played bass on this one before Gail wrote a song for you.
Yeah, that would have made more sense.
And it would have to me too. So I didn't think these were real, but I was just wondering, like, if you'd ever seen that. It's kind of
no. I don't often do any Google searches of anything about me, so
you're better off.
Yeah,
Google search anything is kind of sketchy, but I usually like to source a couple of places, just kind of get an idea of what's going on, you know, what people are saying and stuff. And I saw that, I was like, that doesn't seem like it.
It definitely isn't.
No, it doesn't at all. I guess on the last note, we just want to talk about Van Halen. Did you see the video, the new one?
Oh, the one where it's like the dinosaur park thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I had seen that a long time ago. It was kind of funny to see that resurface, but the video I liked even more was the video of him in 5150 in 1985, and he's playing the riff to Amsterdam, and he's playing a white Charvel, and it's just him, and you see him in full writing mode. Like he's really focused and really interested in what he's doing at the time that he's doing it. And the camera is capturing that. That's the coolest Edward Van Halen video on the internet right now.
I'll have to go back and watch that one again. But this one I had not seen. And I was like, we were just talking about it. I'm like, the shenanigans of, well, first off, because, and this goes back, and this is when we think of this moment when you're talking about guitars and doing solos, right?
Right.
And the guitar should be on there. Now, I'm imagining this guy I don't even know, he probably shot for a television show, maybe public access or whatever, and whatever it is, but it wasn't music. Because right when Eddie's doing his solo, he veers off because whoever's seen it's just like a prehistoric park. It's like a mammoth, and I think there's a mammoth probably went over his head. But he actually pans down to a pathway and sees like a prehistoric caveman when Eddie's like soloing.
A Neanderthal, and it stays on it like the whole time.
Right. My heart just breaks tonight. I'm like, are you kidding me? You see this footage, you get so excited, and they're like, "Ooh, look at this!"
Yeah.
Like look at the butterfly, like an ADD or something. You're like, you're killing me. Yeah.
Yeah. That was just
a crime. I hope you went to jail for that one, because that is just, you don't. Of all the, I mean, if anything else and everything. I think was it in the video he was wearing the striped socks and striped shirt.
Yeah, it's the whole get up for the Fair Warning tour.
Yeah, we'll have to do another one. You have a couple more albums, and we are.
All right. Well, just whenever you want to surprise me with the next topic,
I will. I will dig through the interwebs, and I will come up with the next one. This has been great. I want to thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.
All right. Take care.